The night was supposed to be a fun break from the monotony of daily life. It was a Friday, and my friend Jess was hosting a house party to celebrate the end of midterms. Her parents were out of town, and she had the place to herself. She'd invited practically everyone from our social circle, promising an unforgettable night. I arrived at Jess's house around 9 p.m. The place was already buzzing with energy, music blaring, people dancing, and the unmistakable smell of alcohol in the air. Jess greeted me at the door, a wide smile on her face. "Glad you made it, Alex. Help yourself to drinks and food," she said, motioning to the kitchen where an array of snacks and bottles awaited. I grabbed a beer and made my way through the crowd, greeting friends and soaking in the atmosphere. It felt good to let loose, to forget about the stress of exams for a while. As the night wore on, the party grew louder, the music thumping in my chest. Around midnight, I stepped outside to get some fresh air. The backyard was dimly lit, with a few groups of people chatting and laughing. I walked to the edge of the yard, away from the noise, and took a deep breath. As I stood there, I noticed something odd. A figure was standing by the back gate, partially obscured by the shadows. At first, I thought it was just another partygoer, but something about the way they stood, so still and silent, made me uneasy. I squinted, trying to get a better look. The figure was dressed in dark clothing, a hoodie pulled up to obscure their face. They were watching the house, not moving, just watching. My unease grew. I turned to head back inside and find Jess, but as I did, the figure moved, slipping through the gate and disappearing into the darkness. I shook my head, telling myself it was probably nothing, just some random person passing by. But the feeling of unease lingered. Back inside, the party was in full swing. I found Jess in the living room, dancing with a group of friends. I pulled her aside, trying to keep my voice casual. "Hey, Jess, did you see someone hanging around the back gate just now?" She frowned, glancing towards the backyard. "No, I didn't. Why?" "Just seemed a bit weird. Might want to check it out just in case." She nodded, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "I'll get some of the guys to take a look. Thanks for letting me know, Alex." I watched as she spoke to a couple of friends, who then headed towards the backyard. Feeling slightly reassured, I decided to grab another drink and try to enjoy the party. An hour later, the atmosphere shifted. The music cut off abruptly, and people started murmuring in confusion. I pushed my way through the crowd to find Jess standing in the middle of the living room, her face pale. "Someone's been messing with the power," she said, her voice shaking. "The lights in the basement are out, and the fuse box looks like it's been tampered with." A knot of fear tightened in my stomach. This was no longer just a weird feeling. Someone was deliberately trying to disrupt the party. Jess gathered a few of us together, myself, her friend Mike, and a couple of others. We armed ourselves with flashlights and headed towards the basement, determined to get to the bottom of this. The basement was cold and damp, the air thick with the smell of mildew. Our flashlights cast long, eerie shadows on the walls as we descended the creaky stairs. At the bottom, we saw the fuse box hanging open, wires pulled out in a tangled mess. "Who the hell would do this?" Mike muttered, kneeling to examine the damage. As he worked on fixing the fuse box, I felt a prickle on the back of my neck. I turned slowly, sweeping my flashlight across the basement. At first, I saw nothing but old furniture and boxes. But then, in the far corner, I saw it, a pair of eyes reflecting the light back at me. I froze, my heart pounding. "Guys, someone's here." The others turned, their flashlights joining mine. The figure stepped into the light, a man in dark clothes, his face obscured by a mask. He stood there, silent and menacing, holding something in his hand. A knife. "Get out!" he growled, his voice low and threatening. "Now." We didn't need to be told twice. We bolted up the stairs, nearly tripping over each other in our haste. As we burst into the living room, the power flickered back on, but the sense of relief was short-lived. Part 5. The chase panic spread through the party as word of the intruder got out. People were scrambling to gather their things and leave, but the front door was jammed and the windows were locked tight. Jess grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with fear. "What do we do, Alex?" I tried to think, but my mind was racing. "We need to get everyone upstairs. We can barricade ourselves in one of the rooms and call the police." She nodded, and we began herding people up the stairs. As we reached the top, I glanced back and saw the intruder standing at the bottom, his knife glinting in the light. He was watching us, his head tilted slightly as if amused by our panic. We crowded into Jess's bedroom, shoving furniture against the door. Someone handed me a phone, and I dialed 911 with trembling fingers. As I explained the situation to the operator, I could hear the intruder moving through the house, the sound of his footsteps sending chills down my spine. The operator assured me that the police were on their way, but it felt like an eternity before I heard the sirens approaching. We stayed huddled in the room, listening as the officers entered the house and began searching for the intruder. Part 6. The Resolution. After what felt like hours, there was a knock on the door. "It's the police. You can come out now." We slowly moved the furniture and opened the door, stepping out cautiously. An officer stood there, his expression grim. "We found him in the basement. He's in custody now." Relief washed over us, but it was mixed with lingering fear. The party was over, and the house was eerily silent. The police took our statements and assured us that we were safe, but the memory of those cold eyes and that knife would haunt me for a long time. As I left Jess's house, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon, I couldn't shake the feeling that things would never be the same. The intruder had been caught, but the sense of security we once had was shattered. It was a night none of us would ever forget, a night that turned from celebration to terror in an instant. It was supposed to be the best night of our senior year. My friend Sam had convinced his parents to let him throw a massive house party while they were out of town. Everyone was excited, and the buzz around school had been palpable all week. This party was going to be legendary. I arrived at Sam's house around 8 p.m., eager to unwind and have some fun. The house was already buzzing with activity. The lights were dim, the music was pumping, and people were mingling in every room. Sam greeted me at the door, a huge grin on his face. "Jake, you made it! Drinks are in the kitchen and there's food in the dining room. Make yourself at home," he said, clapping me on the back. I grabbed a beer from the kitchen and started to mingle. Everywhere I looked, people were dancing, laughing, and having a great time. It felt like a scene straight out of a movie, and I was ready to enjoy every minute of it. Around 10 p.m., the party was in full swing. I was talking to a few friends in the living room when I noticed someone I didn't recognize. He was standing near the back door, wearing a black hoodie and jeans, his face partially hidden in the shadows. He didn't seem to be talking to anyone or participating in the party. He was just watching. I nudged my friend Emily, who was standing next to me. "Do you know that guy by the door?" Emily glanced over and shook her head. "Nope, never seen him before. He doesn't look like he belongs here." "I'll go ask Sam if he knows him," I said, feeling a bit uneasy. I found Sam in the kitchen, refilling his drink. "Hey Sam, do you know the guy by the back door? He's wearing a black hoodie." Sam looked confused. "No, I don't. Let's go see what's up." We approached the stranger together. "Hey man," Sam said, trying to sound friendly. "Do you know someone here?" The guy looked at us with cold, emotionless eyes. "Just heard there was a party," he said flatly. "Well, this is a private party," Sam said, his tone firming up. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The guy smirked but didn't argue. He turned and walked out the back door, disappearing into the night. I felt a bit better, but something about the encounter left me feeling uneasy. Around midnight, The party was still going strong when the power suddenly went out. The house plunged into darkness and the music cut off mid-beat. For a moment, there was a stunned silence, then the sound of nervous laughter and people pulling out their phones to use as flashlights. "Everyone stay calm," Sam shouted. "It's probably just a blown fuse. I'll go check it out." "I'll come with you," I offered, sensing his unease. We made our way to the basement with a couple of other friends, using our phones to light the way. The basement was cold and cluttered, filled with old furniture and boxes. Sam opened the fuse box and frowned. "All the switches are off. That's weird." Just as he started flipping the switches back on, we heard a loud crash from upstairs. We all froze, our hearts racing. "What the hell was that?" one of the guys whispered. "I don't know," Sam said, his voice shaky. "Let's go check it out." We hurried back upstairs, our nerves on edge. The crash had come from the living room. As we entered, we saw the front window shattered and glass scattered across the floor. The partygoers were in a state of panic, some shouting and others trying to find a way out. Then we saw him, the guy in the black hoodie. He was standing in the middle of the room, holding a baseball bat. His face was still partially obscured, but his eyes were filled with a cold, menacing anger. "Nobody move," he said, his voice low and threatening. "This is going to be fun." Panic erupted. People screamed and tried to run, but the exits were blocked. The intruder swung the bat, smashing it into a table and sending drinks flying. "I said nobody move," he shouted, his voice rising. I grabbed Sam's arm. "We need to get out of here. Now." He nodded, and we started moving toward the back door, trying to stay low and out of sight. As we reached the kitchen, we heard a scream and turned to see the intruder grab Emily by the arm, pulling her back into the living room. "Help me!" Emily screamed, struggling against the intruder's grip. I felt a surge of panic and rage. "We have to do something!" I hissed to Sam. "We can't fight him, he has a bat!" Sam replied, his voice shaking. I looked around desperately, my eyes landing on a heavy cast-iron skillet on the stove. I grabbed it, my hands trembling. "I'll distract him. You get Emily out of here." Before Sam could protest, I crept back toward the living room, keeping low. The intruder was focused on Emily, his back to me. I took a deep breath, then lunged forward, swinging the skillet with all my strength. The skillet connected with the intruder's head with a sickening thud. He stumbled, releasing Emily. "Run!" I shouted at her. Emily didn't need to be told twice. She bolted for the back door, Sam right behind her. I turned to follow, but the intruder grabbed my ankle, yanking me to the ground. The skillet slipped from my grasp and clattered across the floor. "You're going to pay for that," he snarled, his grip tightening painfully around my leg. I kicked at him desperately, trying to break free, but he was too strong. He dragged me across the floor, his eyes burning with rage. Just as he raised the bat again, there was a loud bang, and he collapsed on top of me. I pushed him off, gasping for breath, and saw Sam standing there with an empty beer bottle, his face pale. "Come on, Jake, let's go!" We ran through the kitchen and out the back door, not stopping until we were halfway down the street. Only then did we turn back, panting and trembling. The sounds of sirens filled the air, getting closer. "We did it," Sam said, his voice barely a whisper. "We got away." But as the police arrived and began to secure the area, the reality of what had happened started to sink in. Several partygoers were injured, some seriously. The intruder was dead, killed in the chaos. And though we had escaped physically unharmed, the trauma of that night would stay with us forever. Weeks passed, but I couldn't shake the nightmares. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the intruder's cold eyes, heard the screams, felt the terror. The party that was supposed to be a night of fun and celebration had turned into a horror show that would haunt us all. No one ever found out who the intruder was or why he had targeted Sam's party. It was a senseless act of violence that left scars deeper than any physical wound. We tried to move on, but some things you just can't forget. The laughter, the music, the promise of a perfect night. All of it was overshadowed by the darkness that descended on us that night. And every so often, when I walk past Sam's house, I still feel a chill, a reminder of the night when everything went horribly wrong. The night when a house party became a nightmare.